Who said the Atari 7800 didn't have good games? Hello everyone, welcome to episode 20 of RETRY. Today we're going to be talking about one of my personal favorites and probably one of the games I played the most as a kid, Xevious, for the Atari 7800, released in 1987. Xevious is a top-down shooter that tells the story of a fight between humans and a supercomputer called GAMP, which controls the alien forces of the planet Xevious. Oh yeah, there we go again. Another great story to explain what you really don't even have to. You're just running around blowing stuff up, and it's an awesome game. In Xevious, you control the ship Xevious that has the ability to shoot air and ground targets. Like River Raid, this game is unusual because it's made up of one continuous level. It is made up of 16 different areas though, and after you complete the 16th area, the game actually loops back, so it pretty much just goes on forever. It's interesting how Xevious handled deaths. Basically, since the game was split up into 16 areas, if you made it through 70% of a single area and died, it would actually start you in the next area. So at least you didn't have to keep going back to the beginning. One of the funny and definitely unique aspects of Xevious is that since it's all one huge continuous level and it's constantly moving you forward, you don't actually have to fight anything. That's right, you can go through the entire game and not kill a single enemy. You can fly through all 16 areas of this huge level with 0 points. I do think that makes Xevious the first pacifist shooter I've ever played in my life. Wait, I think it actually makes it the only pacifist shooter I've ever played in my life. To say that this shooter was popular in Japan would be a huge understatement. After the release of Xevious on the 7800, it had 5 exclusive Japan-only releases. This even included Xevious 3DG, which was released on the original PlayStation, but once again, Japan only. We really missed out, it was a great title. The controls were simplified for the Atari 7800 release of Xevious. In this version, you only used a single button to control both the air-to-air and air-to-ground attacks. One of the only improvements that the NES version of Xevious had over the Atari 7800 version was that it brought back the arcade controls of having 2 separate buttons for each of the attacks. Let me now mention a few reasons why Xevious is such a unique game. First of all, I kind of mentioned before that it has air-to-air and air-to-ground attacks. Xevious was one of the first games to have this kind of complex gameplay. Adding to the challenge, just like I mentioned in Food Fight, how rare it was at the time, there were multiple difficulty settings. The terrain in this game was also extremely special. Rather than just having the status quo outer space setting, this actually had you flying over ground, trees, forests, plants, roads. You were even flying over landmarks. There were Nazca-like line drawings on the ground, and it really became the trademark of this game. Next up, Xevious had terrain that mattered. Looking at the roads, you could actually see paths that the tanks would follow. This gave you a whole new level of strategy in the game because you could try to predict where they would be heading. Xevious was also one of the first games to have an epic boss fight to punctuate the end of a big area. There were also hidden items as well. There were special towers that you could raise and destroy, and there were also flags. Now these flags were the best thing to find. They gave you an extra life, and they were a nod to Rally X, another one of Namco's successful titles. There were plenty of games at the time that had 1 or 2 of these features, but pretty much none of them brought them all together in the way Xevious did. So if you feel like jumping in the cockpit of Xevious and proving your mettle, good news! Xevious was released on the Wii Virtual Console September 1st, 2009. Before I get out of here, I'd like to show you some shot-by-shot comparisons of the Atari 7800 Xevious and the Xevious that was made for the NES. First thing you're going to notice is that the terrain on the Atari 7800 looks way better. This is actually pretty rare for the Nintendo version to not be the best version of a game. Although I think the Xevious, the ship, looks better in the NES version, that's it. Pretty much in every other way, I prefer the 7800 game. Now this segment's leading up to the first boss fight. As you can see, the two versions of the game remain extremely similar. Man, the NES version of this boss fight is so much harder than the 7800 version. On the left, after the fight, you'll see the boss ship back away, allowing you to continue. Whereas in the Nintendo version, you have to fly around it while it's still trying to blow you to pieces. So definitely when I was playing this, I made a real mistake not blowing up the NES boss. For VideoGameSaga.com, this is... Oh man, weak! Are you serious? Well, this is Tony B, and I'm out. Retry? You know it.